I'm back.
And we are back with the 27th episode of the MMA Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We got a bunch to talk about this week. As always, we also have UFC light heavyweight Ryan Jimmo on the podcast. A few fights made. Okami Lombard along with a couple others. Tyson Fury, boxer over. I think he fights in the U.S. He's been talking shit about Cain Velasquez, and our boys at MMA Mental got an interview with him. We'll be talking about that. Also talking about a couple other things, including breaking down this weekend's Strikeforce Finale card. We're going to be talking about the top 5 cards on that. A few other things. Really pumped about this interview we got with Ryan Jimmo. So, yeah, let's send it off and do it. Shazam!
We did it for the love of the game. We did it, mama. I did it for. Mama, the game will never be the same. We did it, mama. I did it for.
And like we do at the top of every podcast, we want to thank the listeners for tuning in. You guys really make this podcast what it is. This episode, we also have our first pre-recorded interview. Every interview you've heard up to this point, Lieben, Misha Tate, Tom Lawler, John Anik, we were thinking on our feet and trying to do it live on the show. But Ryan Jimmo actually had a conflict for Wednesday night, so we talked to him this past Sunday about his fight coming up next month with James Tahuna and his quick 7-second knockout against Anthony Perosh. We talked a lot of stuff about him. He apparently wants to would have been a scientist if he wasn't a UFC fighter, and says the Big Bang Theory, it would make his life to be a cameo on that, which I found, or to have a cameo on that. That was pretty surprising. But yeah, before we get into the rest of it, what's up, Chris? You doing good? You all right? You there, Chris?
I'm doing good, my friend. I am doing good. Thank you. Thank you for asking me how I'm doing. I'm doing great, man. It's been a hell of a ride. Been a hell of a week, and it's been fun.
Hell of a week. You been working a bunch, or?
Yeah. You put the nail on the head. It's been fucking difficult with work. Other than that, man, I can't really complain. I have a roof over my head. I've got a bed to sleep on. It's been nice.
And you got poop in your butt.
Yeah. Big old poop.
Yeah, it seems like we're kind of at the opposite ends of the spectrum. I definitely know what it's like to be at a job that's not necessarily your favorite, and you're working 40+ hour weeks. That's zero fun. But I'm in the spot now. I just graduated, so I'm ready to tear my hair out, looking for a job. And I'm actually over in Tampa Bay spending time with family, but unfortunately I didn't, I moved out of Tampa Bay when I was 8, so I don't really have many adult friends here. So usually my nights, I think this evening, I spent the evening watching Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune and some other stupid show with my grandma eating pancakes for dinner.
It's brutal, dude. That's so brutal.
It's a very odd life I'm living, but it's always nice to spend time with family. Definitely looking forward. I'm not sure really what's on the agenda for me. Where I'm going to work, where I'm going to live. It could be anywhere in the U.S., so it'll be fun seeing what happens with that. But I guess enough with ourselves. Let's get back to the MMA at hand. We also want to talk about MMA Mental. Dude, they're killing it. They get awesome interviews. They had Tyson Fury on recently. They also, I think they did that interview this past Saturday or Sunday as well. He had some controversial things to say, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, Ray and Patrick do an amazing job. Ray's really spearheading the website. Go visit them at MMAmental.com.
They're doing it right.
They're doing it right. We're doing it wrong. I would be the first to admit that. They get like 6 interviews an episode. They don't talk about poop or butts, which is probably for the best.
I'll tell you what, buddy. I realized what the difference is between their podcast and our podcast. It's pretty simple. They get a lot of guests. They get a ton, do like 4, 5, and 6 guests. They get them on and they have great interviews. The one difference is that we get one guest and we actually kind of delve deep into their career, their mindset, their lives. So, MMA Mental gets a bunch of guests and they talk to them, kind of just up front, like, what's up? And then we get one guest and we really, really dig deep. That's the difference.
Yeah, which both of them have their pluses. There are times, especially when I'm, a fight's coming up, it's UFC 156 or whatever. I basically only want to spend 5 or 10 minutes looking at each fighter. If I'm looking for quick news, quick bits, and that's perfect. It's got their own audience, and it's probably both audiences mixed in. There are times I only want to know the bare bones, where he's training, how training's going, etc. And there are times where Ryan Jimmo's been on both podcasts, and it's both of them have their pros, so they're kind of the other side of it. So definitely check out MMAmental.com, subscribe to them on iTunes. And YouTube as well. They have their own YouTube channel, and all those links are on their website and their Twitter, MMA Mental. And we really can't talk about Ray and Patrick enough. They're two very, very kind gentlemen.
Great fellows.
We didn't really know them before this whole podcast thing we started getting into, and we chat oftentimes outside of the episodes, and it's a lot of fun hanging out with those dudes. So it's a great podcast and a couple of great gentlemen. But I guess you tuned into the MMA Podcast. Thank you for doing that. Our call-in number, we're live right now on Ustream. Follow us on Twitter, the MMA Podcast. We always tweet out that link. We're live on Ustream, and we're taking calls. If you want to call in, you can call us on Skype if you're trying to save those minutes. Our Skype is simply the MMA Podcast, or you can call in on our landline. That's 213-457-3380. That's 213-457-3380. And we're live every Wednesdays from 9 till 11 p.m. Eastern, 6 to 8 Pacific on Ustream. We always tweet out that link. So, any Wednesday, if it's 9 to 11 Eastern, dial us up, call in, and chat us up. We really like taking callers. We were actually on Ramsey's the Word on the Streets podcast, and he was making me jealous. So, he probably got 4 or 5 calls on his first episode. So, that's definitely something we want to get more into, is our listeners tuning in and calling up and sharing their opinion, whether they just want to talk about one thing or want to stay and chat about a few things. It's all good. I guess we kind of have a weird structure tonight, as our interview is already out of the way, and we only need to play that bitch. So, you want to start off with the news?
Sounds good.
The news. And I guess the biggest news coming out just a couple days ago, Sam, oh god, I fucking always forget his name. It's Joe Silva, and I was gonna say Sam Cecilia, but I know that's another UFC fighter. It's Silva, and who else are the ones who put those matches?
Sean Shelby.
Sean Shelby,
Silva.
that's it.
Yeah, and Joe Silva.
Yeah, Sean Shelby, Sam Cecilia, same thing. Yushin Okami and Hector Lombard announced for the March 3rd Japan card. We actually both talked about this match as a potential next step for Lombard. It kind of makes sense for both guys. Okami's trying to, bring himself back up from that 2-loss streak, and Lombard, like Okami, lost to Tim Boetsch, and both of them are looking to re-up their stocks in the middleweight division, and I think the winner would be in the top 5. We don't need to break the fight down in depth, but what are your early thoughts on Yushin Okami and Hector Lombard?
Well, I'm going to just say this, that I think that Yushin Okami is a perennial top 10 or even perennial top 5, and Hector Lombard is a guy that spent most of his career outside of the UFC, so I'm going to go ahead and give Yushin Okami the nod in this fight.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as well. You know, Boach really sort of, man, it's so hard thinking about that Boach Lombard fight, because it's really hard to tell whether it was Boach putting forward a great, a great evening, or kind of quelling Lombard, or Lombard just fighting, not fighting with a very good plan, kind of being frazzled in his first UFC appearance. Really, what I kind of lean toward is Lombard just being cold in that fight instead of it necessarily being a stellar night for Tim Boach. Just didn't look like himself, and what it's really going to come down to is whether Lombard can keep Yushin Okami from employing his sort of suffocating game plan, where he just clinches and ties you up. If Lombard can keep Yushin off of him and turn it into a boxing match, which he very well could, he's one of the best judokins in the UFC, along with Yushin Okami. It's all going to come down to whether Lombard can turn it into a boxing match. If he can, he'll win. If he can't, I think Okami's got the edge.
Good call, man. I mean, that really is a match that I'm looking forward to, but it's not a match that I'm excited for.
No, it's got boring decision written all over it, which really could go either way. If Yushin sort of backs away from an attacking boxing Lombard, then Lombard could take the decision. Obviously, if Lombard isn't able to let Yushin suffocate him and stop him from getting that game plan in, it wouldn't necessarily work. So I think both of us are leaning in the same direction here. I'm thinking Yushin will get the decision, but Lombard could easily finish it if he can keep him off of him.
I agree.
I guess we mentioned it when we were talking about MMA Mental. Tyson Fury went on there, called out the UFC champion Cain Velasquez. He had been calling Velasquez out beforehand and making big news about it. Ray was able to lure him onto the show. I think he called him Mexican midget or something racist. I don't think he genuinely believes this. I think it's more of an attention grab. The MMA audience is starting to get bigger than the boxing audience, even though the boxing super fights draw in more of a crowd. You had I think a UFC card on the same weekend as Pacquiao versus Marquez, and the Pacquiao-Marquez bout outdrew it like crazy. But I think that's because you've got a lot of casual boxing fans who only follow one or two fighters and couldn't name more than 3 or 4 current champions in boxing. Where it seems like MMA's sort of audience is much more tuned in. I would say the average MMA fan knows quite a bit more than the average person who buys the the Pacquiao Marquez fight on a pay-per-view, because it's really something a lot of people, everyone I've met and has been interested in mixed martial arts knows a lot about the sports, knows about Dana White, knows about George St. Pierre, John Jones, Anderson Silva, etc., etc., etc. Might not know about these lower name guys, but they definitely know about a Cain Velasquez after UFC 155, and I sort of think that's what Tyson's trying to do, just get attention from a much bigger and more engaged audience.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed the fucking head on the hammer there, sir. You basically said exactly what I was thinking. It's really annoying that these people basically, essentially, at their core, hate progression. They really hate it. So what can we do about that? You just gotta fucking smash them. That's it.
Yeah, and that seems like the only way to get them out of your periphery. Also, speaking of MMA Mental and Ramses and Dave, I don't think I mentioned it. We do the roundtable too, so definitely tune into the roundtable every Thursday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific. And I probably wouldn't do both the Eastern and Pacific zones, but I feel like after living in Chicago, which is in a different time, I feel a lot more sympathetic for all these people who aren't in the Eastern time zone and have got to do math every time they hear a time on TV or hear someone talk about time that's not a friend in the same zone. I feel for you Central Coasters, and like you, Chris, you West Coasters. It's got to be a hard thing to deal with. It's a first world problem, I guess. Another thing I wanted to talk about, we didn't touch on it last week because there just simply wasn't too much out there to talk about. We didn't want to talk about it if it was something that hadn't really been being discussed. Apparently, UFC commentator Mike Goldberg is reportedly in rehab for pill addiction. He had a back problem last year, and I'm assuming it's really easy to get hopped up on those. So obviously, we're not going to talk about that. Just a report that's come out. Really, there's nothing to talk about in that thing. That pills can be a real dangerous thing, and the best for Mike and his family coming back from that. But I sort of want to talk about the UFC side of it, and first talk about John Anik, who replaced him. You all right there? Did you just fall down a flight of stairs? You're coming through real rough. I wanted to talk about how you think Anik did replacing Mike Goldberg at 155. You there, Chris? I think Chris may have just violently passed out. There was a lot of interference on his end. And then we got him back. Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, did you fall or something? There were a lot of loud noises, and then you weren't there, and now you're back. Did you fall down a flight of stairs?
Yeah, I fell down a flight of stairs. It was beautiful. Actually, no, none of that. What's your question?
I was talking about John Anik. How do you think he did replacing Mike Goldberg at UFC 155?
I thought he did really well, actually, to be honest. He looked good. He sounded great. He was fantastic. I don't think that he is better than Goldberg, but he did very well.
Definitely, Tito went on Twitter trashing Anik, saying, "Oh, we need Goldie back soon. Anik sucks." It was his first role, or it was his first time doing a pay-per-view. And he's alongside someone who's done over 1,000 fights. I don't know if Anik was that much into play-by-play before, and if not, it wasn't a high pitch or a high pace sport like mixed martial arts. I think he did. He definitely had times where he fucked up, but for his first time, he did pretty well. So I'm happy for Anik, and it looks like he's really sort of starting to cement his career in the UFC. And yeah, we'll definitely try and have him on again in the future because that was one of the best interviews we've had so far. I think I couldn't even say it was last August we had him on. Before we do the 10 solid seconds of sports, Daniel Cormier opens as a 20-1 favorite and actually said he found his odds against Dion Staring disrespectful. We have on Ryan Jimmo in just a few minutes, and we're going to talk about, we actually spoke about his training with Dion Staring, how Staring was doing training to fight Daniel Cormier. I sort of, led him into the question of whether he thought Cormier could challenge John Jones, and his response was, don't sleep on his fight against Staring, because Staring has been training with Jimmo and the rest over in Boca Raton at the Black Zillions. 20-1 odds a favorite. Cormier finds it sort of a disrespectful line, which I see why he would say that being a respectful opponent, but I don't think the people in Vegas are necessarily trying to take a dig at Staring. I just think they're putting out there what they think. Do you think Dion Staring has a chance to beat Daniel Cormier at the Strikeforce fight?
Fuck no, dude. Hell no. I mean, that guy is in for a world of hurt. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I definitely think Cormier is going to win, especially when he's going from James Jesus Christ, Josh Barnett, just beat him down, picked him up and threw him all over the place. This staring guy, I do think Cormier is going to win, but I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. I actually looked up his record. He trained with Ariel Helwani, wow, I was looking at a couple of names, and I said the other name that started with an A. He was not training with Ariel Helwani. He was training with Alistair Overeem. Actually was his main sparring partner back when he was at Golden Glory, and he has reunited with him over with the Black Zillions in Boca Raton. Training with Alistair Overeem. The one thing we haven't really seen Cormier do, we've seen him knock people out. He's got huge hands. We've seen him toss Josh Barnett around like a rag doll, did so very successfully. The one thing we haven't seen Cormier do is get rocked, get punched in the face, get kicked in the jaw. He's definitely fought some decent guys. He beat Jeff Monson, Bigfoot Silva, and Josh Barnett. But I think Staring might be a little bit more of a riddle striking wise. He is a southpaw. Like a few heavyweights out there in mixed martial arts. It's going to be a really close fight. I'm not going to say it's going to be a really close fight, but I think Staring has more than a 20-1 chance to beat Daniel Cormier. You got nothing, Chris? You got nothing. Let's hit up this 10 solid seconds of sports, where I break down all the sports going on in the sporting world, and then we'll hit another couple topics, and then play that Ryan Jimmo interview for you guys that we recorded this past Sunday. All right, so I guess, let me cue this up, 10 solid seconds of sports. I will start right now. The NHL's back, motherfuckers, but as always, fuck Gary Bettman. Alabama trounces Notre Dame in the national championship 4-2-14, not even close. 8 teams remain in the NFL playoffs. The Lakers still suck. Somehow the Clippers are the talk of the town. Lance Armstrong to own up to doping allegations. And, we'll let the explosion noise go. Oh, that is not the noise I want to be playing. That's the news noise. Another couple topics. Dan Henderson and Nate Marquardt both saying they're open to bouts with teammates. Henderson going to be fighting, or not going to be, but said he's up to fighting Chael Sonnen. And Nate Marquardt talking about fighting GSP. Both of them said they're open to those championship matches, or would be a championship match if Chael were to beat John Jones. What are your thoughts on teammates fighting teammates? Do you think it's something that MMA can put up with in the long term? Do you think it's something, these fighters train with each other and know all of their sort of intimate, secrets to a training? I don't know if secrets, but, their style. And it almost feels like it would be hard to be friendly in the gym with a guy is going to be looking to rearrange your face in a matter of months. Did we lose Chris? And I think we lost Chris. I'll send him a SOS. You there, buddy? On Skype, but I think Chris may have actually died or passed out, or probably passed out. I'll give my 2 cents on it, I guess. Teammates fighting teammates. Yeah. Look, it's something. If you're training with a guy who's in your weight class, before the entire thing, that the chance you guys are going to fight each other is on the horizon. And I really love guys like Donald Cerrone and Melvin Gillard, who really own up to that way of gladiatorship. They were friends before the fight. They were friends after the fight. They still, have kept it cordial, yet they put on one of the best shows of 2012 back in Denver at UFC 150, I guess, or 150. Yeah, it was the Benson Henderson Frankie Edgar 2 fight. I think they were fighting at, and yeah, that was an amazing fight. Melvin rocks Cerrone, and Cerrone roars back for the finish. Which actually, Melvin Gillard, it's been rumored he might be cut from the UFC or released if he loses another fight or two, which I think is ridiculous. I think Gillard has put forth one of the probably one of the top 50 careers in the UFC, if not definitely top 100. He's been in the UFC for a while now. He has a lot of fights under his belt for as young as he is, and he's put on some of the show's greatest fights. And unless he went on, like I would say a 4 or 5 fight losing streak, I wouldn't even think about cutting him from the promotion. But back to teammates fighting teammates. Obviously, yes, Silva and Shelby should use a little bit of discretion when making fights. If you have guys who are, say, number 4 and number 6 in a division, maybe if things work out, you don't match them against each other because it's not, a number 5 versus a number 10. All of that should be taken care of behind closed doors. You should really have people thinking about these teammates, and it seems like they do a pretty good job of not making unnecessary fights between teammates. But when there are two guys in a camp who are the top 2 or who are both in the top 3, both of them are contending for the same title, it gets to a point as, all right, I know you all are friends, but to figure out who the better fighter is and who's going to win the title, it's kind of not deniable at that point to need to fight a guy. Say in a year and a half, say Rory McDonald, say he comes back and beats Carlos Condit, and then say he beats Nick Diaz after Diaz loses to George St. Pierre. Well, he might be the number 1, guy after GSP in that weight division. So if you guys don't want to fight each other, one of you is going to have to switch divisions. And I think in a situation like that, you would see the champion George St. Pierre moving up to middleweight, because it's something that's been floated around out there a little bit. Just a very strange situation a lot of times, but it's something you've got to deal with. Chris, you back yet? No, you're not. I think he actually may have passed out due to massive nitrous oxide inhalation. I don't know. He sounded a little slurry a couple topics ago, but Chris is money 99% of the episodes he is on. Really, I couldn't have a better co-host, and I'm glad me and him have kind of built up a little bit of a listenership on YouTube and iTunes. Definitely, subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube and give us any positive feedback. But I feel fortunate to have randomly met Chris, who called into. I don't know if we've actually told this story on the air, but Chris and I just sort of became buddies. We chat on Skype after he called into a podcast I did summer 2011 called MMA at Work, and we just chat every now and then. And I said I was interested in starting a podcast back up, and he was on board 100%. And we've really had a good time in the 6 months we've been doing that. I've been drunk a couple times. If you listen to the infamous it started off very well, the Nate Quarry interview, the first couple hours, the first 2.5, 3 hours I was with it, but I won't lie to you folks, I was blackout wasted during the last hour. It was a 4-hour podcast, and I think it was a day where I didn't have work the following day, so I was, drinking a little whiskey, and I got extremely loose that evening, and I'm afraid Chris may have gotten a little loose as well tonight. I'm going to feel like an asshole, though, if he didn't, because I didn't even chat with him much beforehand, so I didn't know what he's doing. So if he was just not feeling well, then I'm a fucking douche. But we'll move on. I'm sure people want to hear more about MMA than me talking about whether or not our co-host was wasted. God damn it, I'm a douchebag. Ronda Rousey and Liz Carmouche are going to get a primetime special, and this is where I would be asking Chris, what is your favorite primetime special? I guess Chris isn't here, so he can't answer that. A few of them have definitely stood out. The St. Pierre Hardy one was excellent at chronicling both of their gyms. There was obviously the special Man, I'm just thinking through all of them now. You had a special for oh shoot, why am I blanking? Penn versus Florian, I believe, had its own special. That one was actually, or was it Penn? No, it was Penn Shirk. That was the epic Penn primetime special. But really, you've got to give it up to both of the Silva versus Sonnen episodes. The thing that makes a primetime episode special is very contrasted lives. And you had that in spades, showing Anderson Silva in Brazil, and really putting that in the back, not the backdrop, but contrasting it with, Westland, Oregon, and Sonnen, and got both of those. Oh, and two, obviously, the trash talk, and both of those guys, especially Chael Sonnen, had lots of trash talk ready for his opponent, Anderson Silva. That was extremely, extremely entertaining primetime episode. I guess if Chris still isn't with us, I've covered all the news topics I wanted to get to before playing the Ryan Jimmo interview. So without any further ado, I'll play you the interview we had this past Sunday with Ryan Jimmo. I hope you guys enjoy, and here it is. All right. Hey, and we got Ryan Jimmo on the line, UFC light heavyweight fighter and owner of the fastest knockout in UFC history. How's your day going, man?
Not too bad, man. Just resting up my body and getting ready for a good day tomorrow.
Nice. So you're in Florida now, training with the Black Zillions?
That's correct. Yeah, I came back down here in October, and I've been down here training hard since.
All right, cool. Yeah, I definitely want to get into you training with the Black Zillions and preparing for your fight next month. But I think sort of to lead up to that, our co-host Chris has a question about your karate background. Chris?
Hey, Ryan, man, pleasure to have you on, buddy. I appreciate you taking your time out of your day. It means a lot to me and Jake and our fans as well, man. Appreciate it very much.
My pleasure, man.
Yeah, you got it. All right, so your karate background, I was actually listening to your MMA Mental interview recently, and one thing that you brought up was how well that you did at karate, and I kind of I felt like I wanted to know more about that, just how you got started in it, and what kind of leagues you were in and competition-wise, what weight classes, etc. So can you kind of just walk us through your karate career?
Sure. I started doing karate kind of, it was in my family. My father competed in Japan several times. He placed 5th in our style karate in the world and 8th in another time when he went to Japan. So it was around me ever since I was a young boy, ever since it's before I can kind of even remember, I guess. And so it's something I inherited, I was born into. So I've been doing it kind of informally ever since I could walk, and kind of off and on between 6 and 10. I kind of want to stay home on Saturday mornings and watch cartoons instead of go to karate class. But then when I was 10, I decided I was going to stick with it, and I competed right when I started off, from when I was 10, right till I stopped doing it till I was about 23. I took home 4 national titles, and it was a heavyweight. For karate. 2 of those titles were juniors, and then 2 of them were in the senior class. I think my second year in the senior class, I won it. And I got a silver medal and a bronze medal at the Pan American Games, and I went to the Commonwealth Championships, and I got a tentative 5th. So I competed. So I competed quite a bit, and when I was training, I think right when I was like 18 or 19, that's when I started really getting kind of serious where, it's like friends didn't come around me for 2 months, and I was completely, right after I got out of school, I think I had a job that, I worked like twice a week, and then, my parents kind of supported me. I was lucky to have a good situation. And all I did was like basically eat, sleep, train, I'd get up in the morning, I'd train, and then I'd take a little nap, and then I'd train again in the evening, and my whole life centered around it for about 3 or 4 years. So.
Wow, man. That's pretty awesome. A couple other questions. I don't know if you answered this, previously, but what style of karate were you a practitioner of? Hello?
You there, Ryan? Oh, it looks like he got knocked off. Let's bring him back right quick. You there?
Sorry, guys. Real sorry about that.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, I didn't hear. Did you hear my question? I
What
did not
style
hear your
did I
answer.
study?
Well, yeah. What style of karate were you a practitioner of?
Yeah, I was in a style called Chitaru, Chito, and it's a little different than what you probably saw with Lyoto Machida in his specials. He studies a Shotokan-based karate, the Machida-Ru or whatever his father, kind of adapted from Shotokan karate, which it kind of has a lot of long stances, a lot of very straight linear punches, and my style does too. But they're very linear moving. They go back and forth for a lot of hard. It's a very hard style. Mine's a little bit more of a soft style, a lot more sidestepping, a little bit not so deep stances and long stances, and we're a little more mobile and a more circular based.
I got you totally, man. I appreciate the input. Now, Kyokushin karate, the one that GSP is famous for training, that's more of a aggressive, kind of a kickboxing-centric karate style. How does the style that you practice under compare to Kyokushin?
I don't believe Kyokushin, they don't have any katas. It's all like they have like exercises to develop techniques, and then it's all sparring. So I think they're pretty close to a Shotokan based in their style, and maybe even a little bit of a Goju-Ryu. And if you don't know Goju-Ryu, that means hard, soft style. So, but they're probably more of a hard style, probably more of a Shotokan based karate style. So a lot of hard blocks, hard punches. It doesn't have a soft side to it,
Well, right on, man. And as far as your actual competing in karate, you seem to have a very, very deep background in it. It was a good solid base for you, as you were coming up and training. Now, when you say that you won all these medals and whatnot, when you were fighting, were you winning a lot by finishes or were you winning a lot by points? I know, I actually, to be honest, I don't know if you guys actually wear headgear while you're doing this stuff. I'm not too up on my competition karate knowledge, but I just kind of wanted to get a bigger. Oh, okay.
I think he dropped. Yeah, I think he dropped out again. He's back.
Yeah,
I'm back.
All right, he's back. Heyo. All right, so I just kind of wanted to see in your karate career if you were, knocking fools out or were you winning by decision? Because I remember you said you scored like 100 and something points, and you only had like 6 points scored against you. So I kind of just wanted to get a better idea of how that played out.
And I'm back.
Hey, yeah, dude, this is the beautiful thing about a pre-recorded interview. We can take all these chunks out and make it sound like there was no problems whatsoever.
Yeah, we weren't sweating bullets trying to stumble over each other.
Yeah, like we usually do.
I don't know if you heard the last question, man, but it was basically just walk us through your actual karate career on finishing ratio. I know you had a lot of points scored against opponents, so I just kind of wanted to get a better idea on how that played out.
Yeah, I really I didn't really keep track of my points until the last year I competed, and I thought it'd be neat if I go back and I watch the tapes of all my tournaments, and I think a head kick was 3 points, a takedown and a punch to the body was another 3 points, a body kick was 2 points, a foot sweep where they're off balance was 2 points, and a body punch to the head or a punch to the body of the head was 1 point. So I scored, my last year competing, I scored 126 points, I believe, and I had 7 scored on me, I think.
That's incredible, man. I mean, that's outstanding.
Yeah.
Did you finish anyone in these competitions? Was it rare to get a finish, or was that something you saw?
These were point competitions, so if there was an 8-point spread in the score, then you won. Otherwise, there are 3-minute karate matches, and I finished a very good portion of my fights. Yeah.
Right on, brother. Well, I'm going to pass the reins back to Jake. Thanks for the karate info.
No problem.
Yeah, the karate stuff's really cool. I noticed, you've started relatively recently in mixed martial arts. You did karate for a while, and I believe your first professional fight was in '07, just about 6 years ago. What made you want to transition from karate over to mixed martial arts?
Well, like one of my idols is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he took his sport to the very top, and then he became a movie star off of that. So I was looking at what I was doing, and I had to work 40 hours a week just to kind of pay my bills to so I could compete. So I looked at MMA, and there was more publicity, and it's something I could build my celebrity status, and I thought I have a bit of a gift and I have a talent here, so I might as well see how far I can take this, and then eventually, kind of do what someone who's my idol like Arnold Schwarzenegger did. Took his skill to a large world stage, the biggest one he could, and then he used that to kind of springboard into a movie career, and then obviously into politics and business after that.
Yeah, and obviously you've also made the transition pretty well. You're 17-1 so far, and rocketing up the UFC 205-pound division. We've asked a few fighters this, and I feel like every time we get a pretty intriguing story. So take us to the build-up and the night of your first fight, which I believe was at MFC 11.
That's right, with Adam Braidwood. That's the one I lost. Jeez.
Were you more nervous, more confident than you are now? Like how have things changed from your first fight, to the way you mentally prepare and go through fights now in the UFC?
I haven't really changed my method of preparation. Well, I have in a way. For when I was competing, I had kind of a system that I followed, and it ensured that I won a lot. It's like no going out on certain nights. It's like if you have a significant other, they're basically getting ready for a fight with you. They're not going out or eating bad food too. I have all these like weird little idiosyncrasies that I follow when in my preparations for my fights. So. I had kind of a system that I always kept going, and it's something that I've been refining for a long time. So it's changed somewhat, but it's still basically the same thing. You stay focused on your goal. You cut out outside distractions as much as you possibly can. Sometimes life kind of barges in a little bit, and you have to deal with things. But you just focus on your goal, and you take away the distractions, and you mentally prepare, make sure you put good fuel in your body, and you just have pinpoint laser-like focus on your goal. And it hasn't changed that much. Maybe a few of the details, like where I'm living, or maybe one or two of the foods I'm eating, or maybe one or two of the techniques I use to kind of focus my brain on is a little bit different. But essentially the system is the same. Just eat, sleep, and train, and have pinpoint laser-like focus.
Is it the same system you used back during your karate days?
Yep. The exact same system. You kind of cut yourself off from the world. You be a bit of a hermit, and you just focus in on the gym. That becomes your life. And it's okay to give yourself little treats, like a little bit of junk food, or maybe go see a movie once in a while. But because you kind of need that a little bit, and but it's same system.
So your entire MMA career has been at the light heavyweight division. What weight did you fight at back in your karate days?
I was about 215 pounds. My first my first 5 fights were in heavyweight for MMA. And then so that was a heavyweight division in karate when I was at 215 pounds. So that was about where I was. Sometimes a little bit lighter, give or take 10 pounds either way. But I was always pretty big guy, so I was always about well over 200 pounds usually.
Definitely. It's kind of crazy. You and Renan Barão have very similar records. You're both on crazy streaks, and you have one loss in your career, which just happens to be the first loss. It's kind of cool seeing a guy just get spurned by that and going on a crazy streak. I'll bring you to what was probably a better night for you this past July 21st at UFC 1 149 when you knocked out Anthony Perosh in 7 seconds, which for me, you know, all of the really quick knockouts, you have Duffy, Ludwig, you, and Chan Sung Jung. What I like about yours the most, you all actually touched gloves and you still knocked him out in 7 seconds. Take us through that fight, and then take us through the whirlwind after. I'm sure everyone wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah, I was a popular guy after that. So, you know, it was, I had to kind of square myself off for a couple days and kind of deal with the media. I had my family there for that fight, so they were patient enough to, you know, realize I had a little bit of business to take care of, and so that was a blessing, and they took some of the stress off me. So afterwards, it was a bit of a whirlwind, but I had a good support crew to make sure that I get it done. And you know, during that fight, I've been waiting for that night for so long. You know, I competed in other leagues and kind of toiled and worked my craft for so long and tried to, you know, I polished my diamond for so long, you know, and I've been waiting and waiting for that. And geez, when the opportunity was there, I knew I was gonna grab it with both hands. And I just remember looking across from in the cage, and I just remember thinking, like, Anthony Perosh, you are in big trouble right now, and you don't even realize it yet. And then I went at him, and I didn't expect it, obviously, the first punch to knock me out. I knew I was going to connect, and I knew I was going to come back on the upper hand if I was going to throw some heavy leather. But, you know, it happened to land real flush, and I guess the rest is history.
Definitely, sure, yeah. That was a very, very exciting moment. Probably just the moment on, probably the premier moment on UFC 149. I think I saw you on SportsCenter too. So for an MMA fighter to make it on SportsCenter, that's definitely a feat. Recently, you started training with the Black Zillions down in Boca Raton. Was this before or after the Perosh fight?
This was before. I went down there in March.
Okay.
So I to get out of these wonderful Canadian winters, you know. So I went down there at the end of the Canadian winter, and you know, I don't know if I'll be back in Canada too often during the winter time, but it was good training down here. World class guys. I had to go in training, and I had to be competitive every single day. You know, it's not saying, well, I can take it easy today because, you know, this guy's like the, you know, like sometimes the talent base wasn't at my other places I was training at. So I had to elevate my game and elevate my focus even further when I was here. And I mean, my that camp was pretty good, and this camp is even better. I mean, I found, you know, of the teammates I like to click with, like very much so, like with Alistair Overeem and Dion Starring and you know, a lot of the other guys that I train with here. I mean, we kind of, you know, you always find the people that you like to train with and that you work well with. So I mean, I just have a better situation down here now that I've been here longer, and things are just clicking even better.
Yeah, I really can't see a way how that would be negative for you. I just want to say, first off, that going down to the Black Zillions is probably upping your game quite a bit. I mean, you just brought up some valid points there of the coaching staff, the training partners. I wanted to ask you something. On MMA Mental, you brought up the fact that sparring with Alistair Overeem is an experience. To be honest with you, man, Alistair Overeem is my favorite fighter of all time. I mean, his accolades are incredible. He's a beast. I wanted to get an inside view, you know, from you, what it's like to spar with Alistair Overeem, because that guy is a monster. I mean, he's in a different weight class than you. He's got those crazy K1 credentials. So just kind of walk us through a sparring session with Alistair without giving away any secrets, obviously. I just want to know what that's like.
That's no problem. I had a little bit of a rib injury, just a minor one, a couple weeks back. And on certain days, we spar with small MMA gloves, you know, like not the very smallest ones, but, you know, those kind of medium-sized ones. Mm-hmm. And I forgot to bring my shin guards, and I said, Alistair, I'm not kicking. He's like, okay, well, I won't kick either. And I said, and I can't get hit to the body, so he's like, so we're just going to, like, punch to the head.
And I realized I was bad at negotiating things when I just negotiated myself into like a 5-minute sparring session with Alistair Overeem, where we're just going to punch each other in the head. You know, I knew I'm like, I should not go into politics. I should not be doing business because I'm horrible at this. But, Alistair's a good training partner. He doesn't even realize how big and strong and fast he is. So it is an experience. Every time it's like, oh, geez, I got to spar with Alistair. This is going to be a trip, man. But after you spar with Alistair, you go and you spar with someone else, and they hit like girls. That's what I think of when I spar. Like when I spar with other like light heavyweights and stuff, and even in the camp, even like world class guys, I'm like, when they hit me, I'm like, oh, this guy kind of hits like a sissy, you know. So it makes you tougher, and I mean, I always try to push myself. So I'm a little bit more fleet-footed than Alistair, so if I move around, I do a little better, but I like to stand right in front of him and try to throw with him a little bit. And I get hit a lot. I lose a few brain cells, but it makes you tougher. And anyone else that stand in front of you, you can look at the person that stand in front of you and go, I'm not afraid of you at all, because I basically stood in front of the biggest, strongest K1 fighter in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also you're talking about how everyone else is sissies after sparring with them, but you're probably peeing a little bit of blood. A little bit of blood is coming out in your pee.
At times, he's got a pretty good knee to the body.
I can only imagine how that feels. Talking about Alistair Overeem, it's kind of a two-part question. First off, I wanted to get your thoughts on rankings, because recently Dana White announced that the winner of Big Nog versus Fabricio Verdum is going to face off against Kane. I think that's really just giving Alistair Overeem the shaft, because I think he deserves that title shot if he gets past Bigfoot. How do you feel about that, man? How do you feel about, a guy who, Alistair Overeem beat Fabricio Verdum 2 years ago and is on a kind of a similar trajectory? And the second part of that question is, what is with this ranking system? Like, there's no clear-cut way to the title. So, to kind of sum that up, do you think that Alistair deserves that title over Fabricio? And number two, how do you feel about the current UFC rankings to get to that title?
Okay, so I'm going to answer the second one first, if you don't mind.
Sure, not at all.
I think because the UFC, they kind of monopolize. They have They had the market monopolized. They're the biggest game in town, and they can kind of call the shots. It's not like the NFL or the NHL, where they have a lot of corporate shareholders and everything is really regulated now, where they have specific rankings, and this guy's in this spot, and this guy automatically gets to go to the playoffs because, this is a business that Dana White and the two brothers are they're trying to make money. It's a business, so they're gonna do whatever sells, and so it's not I don't think evolved into that type of a sport yet. It will, I think, in the future, but overall the sport has not quite evolved into that. It's just not that time. It hasn't grown into that yet. I think eventually it will. I think maybe football and baseball and other sports that are 100 years old, we're probably very similar when they're only 20 years old. So it's just going to take a little time, a little maturity. Now, the second question, should Alistair get the title shot? Since he's my training partner, I think the guy's probably the best heavyweight in the world. He's an animal.
I agree.
If I looked at it from maybe because he hits me, maybe that's why I think that. But on on the other side of the coin, he just got back from a bit of a layoff, so I think it's okay that the UFC are building him up with another fight, and then build a little more suspense in there, because it's a little bit like a soap opera. You know what I mean? Like just to sell fights, they have to build up some drama and this sort of thing. So I think it's probably appropriate, in the bigger scheme of things. But I would like to see Alistair get a title shot, and I think he wins it when he gets it.
Yeah, things things like Alistair Overeem getting the title shot, that definitely makes a lot of sense. But then you have, things like Chael Sonnen getting the next shot at light heavyweight. We actually had Michael Schiavello on a few weeks back, and he was going berserk, going on a rampage. It's not about rankings, it's about ratings. Just, going really, really mad about the UFC brass. It is the division you fight in. What do you think about Sonnen getting a title shot after a loss at middleweight?
Again, I think the first part of the question I answered. I think I kind of answered it, where this is a business. These are private business owners, who want to see their brand become as successful as possible. So by putting Chael Sonnen and John Jones on TV, people are going to tune into that. I know I am. I sometimes, hey, I know you've probably done this. You should probably go on YouTube and put in Chael Sonnen and just watch him rant for 10 minutes.
And
everyone's done it. I love the guy. I love watching him, man. I think he's hilarious. Does he deserve the title shot? No, but again, this is a private business that they're running, and if they think that's best for the business model that they have set out, then that's their decision to make. Is it right within a sporting kind of seeding ranking thing? No, obviously not. But again, I don't think we're playing on that field, right?
Yeah, so it's definitely a business, but it's a business you've got stake in. Is it something that makes you upset, or is it just something you kind of accept as a way of life with mixed martial arts at the current moment?
Yeah, well, so I'm a bit of a realist, and my buddy, my friend Ryan Saunders, he's actually the guy who got me into MMA. He said one time, he's like, you know what? You can sit there and complain about how the 1% rules the rest of the world, or you can try to become rich yourself. You know what I mean? So, we can sit here and complain that the colorful killer characters and the crazy people are getting all the nice fights, or you can become a little colorful and crazy yourself. And I'm pretty colorful. I do the robot, I do the splits, and I get some other things that I might want to do in the future as well. So I'm okay with it.
Absolutely, man. You sound like a consummate martial artist, not just a mixed martial artist, a guy who's kind of dedicated his entire life to the thing, and that's worth looking up to. And on that same note, I always find myself watching these fights, obviously legally purchasing the pay-per-view, and seeing you guys not only go through the pre-fight, getting your hands wrapped, but Burt Watson yelling at you. You're walking out of those cage doors to beyond thousands of screaming fans. You walk up, you're eyeing your opponent, and you step into that cage, and the pageantry and the intensity of it is something that always excites me. I don't follow any other sports, just combat sports. How does that feel, man, when you're standing there on the other side of the cage, looking at your opponent, and you just feel that crowd just calling your name? You must feel like a Colosseum fighter from ancient Roman days. That's got to be something. Can you tell us what that's like?
Yeah, you do. The best way I can describe it, that when you're fighting, have you ever seen the first Spider-Man movie?
Of course.
Yeah. You know when he gets in a fight with that bully that he's always afraid of, and he guy throws a punch, and then everything slows down, and he looks at the guy and looks at the fist, and then it speeds all back up. It's kind of like that. Sometimes you're fighting, and sometimes things are going in slow motion. You hear people talking in the crowd. It's almost like a surreal experience. And then sometimes it goes blistering fast. So it's but the build up sucks. The build up sucks because you have to hold in all this energy, and it's important to put it out in the appropriate amounts once you get in there. So it's a bit of a calculated push of your own internal personal energy.
I feel you, man. The anxiety must be at some crazy levels. A lot of people don't know how to deal with that kind of angst, but it seems like all of you fighters out there, there is no way out. You guys have to do it. You've spent months of your life training leading up to it. You have family and friends, on your shoulder looking after you. So it's kind of an admirable thing to go out there and put it all on the line. And I think that's why I respect you and anyone who gets in the cage.
Well, thank you, man. All right.
Yeah, your next fight is in, I guess, a month and 10 days at UFC on Fuel 7. You're fighting James Tehuna.
Yes.
Kind of take us back to that Black Zillions camp and walk us through how you've been preparing for this fight over in England.
You know what? Just finding the right training partners, putting your schedule together, and then, following out the plan that they put in front of you. I take pride in being a pretty, well-rounded guy, so I try to give equal attention to all my skills and make sure that I have the best of, down here in this camp, there's best of all worlds. If I want to kickbox or I want to do a stand-up, I have the best in the world here. If I want to do jiu-jitsu, I have Mario Sperry teaching jiu-jitsu. If I want to do wrestling, there's Rashad Evans, there's Anthony Johnson, there's good wrestlers here. There's Scott Bear. It's like there's just great wrestlers here. So I just have basically the best in the world of MMA at my fingertips. So I just go in and I try to master each skill to the best of my ability, and that's it. Put in a ton of effort. Be smart and intelligent with my training, with my nutrition, with my rest, with my life balance, and just make the most out of it.
Yeah, there are a whole ton of superstars there, a whole ton of guys coming up like yourself in the Black Zillions. Speaking of the camp, I sort of wanted to know, is there anyone in the Black Zillion camp you feels kind of flying under the radar now that no one's really talking much about, but he's an absolute beast in the gym?
There's a guy. He's not in the gym right now. There's a whole slew of guys. One guy that he's a Strikeforce fighter named Guto Innocente. Very good stand-up on this guy. You give him a couple of years, and he's only young too. I think he's only 25, so give this guy a couple of years, and he could really be something. Another young guy that's training quite hard, and I'm talking about 19-year-old young. In 5 years, he'll be a force to be reckoned with for sure, like a definite force. But right now, he's pretty damn impressive as well. As a kid named Luke Jackson, and he's only 19, and he's going to have a bright future in the sport.
Definitely. I want to switch it back to a question about you. Your last fight, I think just as many people were a fan of the knockout as they were a fan of the robot dance after, which I jumped up and started cheering because the robot was like the only dance I would really bust out at those cheesy high school proms, whatever. The robot's awesome. I love seeing someone bust it out. I didn't really see in your fights at MFC, but is the robot something you've been doing a while? And if so, where did all of it come from? And I guess will we be seeing more of it in the future?
You'll certainly be seeing more of it in the future. I did do that at all MFC fights, and that one that you saw, I was just really excited. So it was actually a really bad robot. If you go on YouTube, there's a lot better videos of me doing the robot that, like people that actually do it are like, wow, you're very impressive at that. So that wasn't a very good robot. But where it started from is my friend and I. I always wanted attention when I was younger as a teenager. And my brother used to break dance, and he taught me a little bit when I was a kid. And my buddy and I said, hey, I saw these break dancers on TV one day. I taped it and I said, hey, why don't we try to learn this? So we started teaching ourselves how to break dance. And we'd go to school dances, and we'd have battles with other guys, and so it's just something I kind of kept doing. Kind of for a while there, I didn't do it in public, or no one knew I could do it for a couple of years there. But I was always still practicing at home in the mirror, just for a little bit of fun. And now it's something I guess that serves me well.
Definitely. So would you be willing to say that Ryan Jimmo is the best dancer in the UFC?
Yes. In fact, I will go on a limb here and say for doing a pure robot dance, not the one that I did just after my fight because I was just kind of screwing around right there. But I will say I will challenge. I'm probably in the top 30 in the world for doing that. I'm going to go on a limb and say there's maybe 30 people in the world that might be better at me than doing the robot. And
Top
I will
30.
change that.
Powerful, Ryan Jimmo. You are good at that. I've actually seen your post MFC robot dances, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there's one other fighter in the UFC active right now, someone you know very well. I think that the one guy that can give you a run for your money is Rashad Evans with the stanky leg.
We've had little contests here in the camp, so maybe that would be funny. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'd love to see you, challenge someone to a robot dance off, but just thinking about where you're going, currently with your career. We talked about rankings. We brought up your past. James Tahuna, the man in front of you. We talked about your training. How do you feel about that guy as an opponent? Because I think he's a hard fight for anyone at 205. And I'll tell you what, man, I'll be rooting for you on fight night. But how do you see this fight playing out? I know you're not the kind of guy to make predictions. You're a nice level guy. But, I mean, kind of walk us through that. You have an opponent in front of you. He's a hard-nosed dude.
Yeah, I think James Tahuna is a very hard-hitting guy. He's got some heavy hands, and he could knock out or TKO anyone. If he catches anyone real flush on the chin, he can do some damage to them. So I think that's his biggest asset. So I'm tailor making my game plan around his strengths, and I think he's a hard fight as well. I believe he's Maori. He's from New Zealand, and I've been down in New Zealand before, and those people are pretty big, strong people. I was driving up the road when I was down there, and I saw this. A lot of the guys have long hair, So I see this construction worker. He's like using a jackhammer. I'm like, man, look at the size of that guy. That guy is. Oh my god, that's a woman. That's a woman. Oh my god. So they're like a big, strong people. So I know he's gonna become with some intensity, man.
How big of a beard did she have?
It was. She looked like Santa Claus with dark hair. No, I'm just kidding. No.
That's beautiful.
No, but they're big, strong people. So I'm expecting some fireworks and some intensity from them for sure.
Yeah, have you been doing anything special to train for him, or has it just been the daily go in and pick up a new skill every day over there in Boca Raton?
Yeah, I with the amount of skill level here, I just basically at this point, I mean, it's going to start to tailor down into more specifics for me. But in this point, it's just there's so much skill and talent here. It's just build your skills and build your talents where you're here, and then just be at an elevated level so that when you fight anyone, you're just above them wherever they want to go. We're doing pretty good, though. That was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's what's beautiful about the pre-recorded interview. We can just clip all of this out, but I guess let's get back to it. We only have a few more questions, and we'll let you go. I really like following you on Twitter because you've usually got a opinion about MMA. You're usually watching the fights, tweeting about the fight. So obviously you're a fan. And sort of a debate I've seen more talked about recently is Daniel Cormier moving down to fight John Jones. A lot of people think Cormier is going to be a real threat for John Jones. What do you think about this hypothetical Jones-Cormier match? You think Cormier's got the tools to beat the champion, I guess?
He's got a good wrestling base, and I think he's got pretty heavy hands. It's going to be hard to say how he's going to handle that weight cut and how he's going to handle fighting that level of competition. My teammate's actually fighting him next week, so no one's invincible. So I think people are putting the horse before the cart here, or the cart before the horse. I think in the fight game, it's never a smart idea to kind of think ahead too much, after I get past this guy, it's good, No, you got to pay attention to this guy. We're all professionals here, and you better make sure you win the fight that's right in front of you. But I think Daniel Cormier is a talented guy, and in the appropriate amount of time, I think if he makes it through the ranks, it's hard to say how he'll do.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about Cormier because I know you're training with Dion Staring. Is there anything special he's been doing in training to get ready for Daniel Cormier? Obviously, not to give away any of his secrets, or is it sort of just the same mentality as you as far as going in there and trying to get better slowly at everything?
Yeah, well, Dion has a game plan that he's going to try to put in play, and I think it's pretty good. It's a pretty good game plan. So, he's been training very hard. It's the best camp he's ever had. So, and the guy's a machine. I mean, he can. He doesn't stop. Like, he is a machine. I mean, he grinds and he pushes and he breaks guys. Because he has a very high rate of output. So, it should be a good fight. I'm looking forward to seeing Dion fight.
For sure, yes. So I can't think of anything else MMA related. Chris, you have any more questions for him?
I do. I have one. The most important question of all.
The question we ask.
Yeah, Ryan, Mr. Ryan Jimmo.
Yes.
We ask everyone this exact question, and I'll tell you what. Chris Lieben is bubblegum. John Anik is lactose intolerant. Charlie Brenneman is vanilla. What is Ryan Jimmo's favorite ice cream flavor? You can tell a lot about a guy, about what kind of flavor that they like to eat when it comes to ice cream. Tell us.
Geez, that's a pretty. That's a complex question. Depends if it's that time of the month for me or something. I got to think about this. I always liked Neapolitan when I was a kid. But sometimes I like just chocolate. I do love strawberry. But like roll ice cream's awesome. Oh, you know what's really good? Okay, score ice cream. But not the new kind that they came out with, which is like vanilla with a little score bite. No, like chocolate with great big chunks of toffee in it. That's a shit. You know what I mean?
What is this score ice cream you're speaking of? I live in California. What is this?
Oh, like a score bar. It's like a thin little kind of toffee wafer, kind of chocolate covered goodness. You know what I'm saying?
Never heard of it.
No,
Never heard of it.
Okay, all right. Maybe it's a Canadian.
I'm in Florida. I think I've seen it. It definitely sounds familiar.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got to go. I've got to check see if they actually have it down here in Florida. So I'm in Florida as well. So I'll have to check it out. But that's probably my favorite. So it might be a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. No, you said you wanted to, or we could ask about stuff other than MMA. Yes,
okay.
Yeah, dude. Let's tap into your mind. Sort of outside of fighting and training and following MMA. What sort of stuff are you into usually?
Well, I really like science. I do like politics, so that's why I brought those up. So these are the sort of things that I'm into. I like chess a lot. I like these sort of things. I love Freemasonry. I love that stuff. So, yes.
What do you think you would have been if you weren't a professional fighter?
A scientist or maybe an actor. I'm not sure. So, but I still plan on kind of making good on both of those. Maybe a race car driver, Something like this.
Dude, I got a question for you. You're talking about acting a lot. I myself am a film buff. I love film. What director would you love to work with, and what kind of genre would you like to act in?
I think originally, to kind of get my feet wet, I would like some action, because I'm a pretty physical guy. But I like sci-fi. I like fantasy a little bit, stuff like this. I really like sci-fi. I'm a big like science geek, so I like sci-fi. Actually, you know what I want to be on, and I'm going to try to make it happen. I want to be on The Big Bang Theory as a guest.
Just a real, just muscled up geek. I could see it.
Yes, and maybe I could work together with Dr. Sheldon Cooper, and say Bazinga. That would be like my ultimate. I could die the next day, and I'd be completely okay with how the life I lived if I could
teach him how to curl properly with 30-pound dumbbells or do kettlebells.
Yeah, well, I guess if we don't have anything else, dude, thank you so much for coming on. Really enjoyed your time, and we're definitely going to be rooting for you next month at UFC on Fuel 7.
Thanks a lot, guys. It was great talking to you.
You have any shout-outs or plugs you want to shout out before we let you go?
I do want to shout out to a new company I just teamed up with, Fox Rent-A-Car. They look like they're going to be a great supporter for my future and in my career. I want to say thank you to my team, Black Zillions, all the guys I train with, my mom and dad. I love you, Mom, and my girlfriend as well. And no, well, not Jesus. Buddha, maybe Buddha. My girlfriend, hi, how you doing? If I didn't include her in there, she'd get pretty mad. So there you go.
You have any dogs or cats you want to shout out? We had Tom Lawler on a few months back, and he definitely wanted to shout out General Whiskerton. I forget what he named.
It was
his
actually
cat.
Mr. Waffles. Close.
Mr. Waffles.
I'd like to say a shout out to my invisible friend that I talk to all the time. That's it.
Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. Follow him on Twitter. It's Ryan Jimmo, RyanJimmo, one word. And yeah, really good luck in your fight next month. And maybe, a few months down the road, we can have you back on someday, man.
Hey, great, man. Thank you very much, guys, for having me. It's been great.
All right, thanks a lot,
man.
And that was our interview with Ryan Jimmo. We did this past Sunday. Real fun guy. I had a lot of fun interviewing that guy, chatting with him, hearing his story. Let me turn my mic level up a little bit. I think I'm coming through a little low. Yep, I tried getting in contact with Chris, but wasn't able to reach him, so I guess it's just going to be you and me for the rest of the podcast, and unless anyone else wants to call in. If you did want to call in, the number for that is 213-457-3380, 213-457-3380. We get a lot more archive listens than live listens, but we really, encourage if you're available Wednesdays between 9 and 11 Eastern or 6 to 8 Pacific. We always like to have live callers, and yeah, hear what you all got to say. One more time, 213-457-3380, or you can just Skype us at the MMA Podcast. Either one works. Skype saves me a little bit of money. But yeah, let's get back to the news. It's only going to be you and me tonight, so I guess we'll keep it short and sweet. This will probably go a little less than 2 hours, although most of ours go a little more. Unless we do get a caller, then it might go over 2 hours. If any crazy callers want to call in, Jim Miller is the next thing I want to talk about as far as news goes, saying he wants a rematch with Gray Maynard. And, I was actually chatting with this fight very briefly with Chris before we hopped onto the line. I guess both of us were kind of busy today and just hopped on maybe 5 or 10 minutes before the podcast. We usually speak a little bit longer than that, but in the short amount of time we did speak, one of the things we talked about real quick was the Jim Miller Gray Maynard matchup, and it's kind of an intriguing one. They faced each other back in March of 2009 at UFC 96, and both of them really have put forth excellent records since then. I think Jim Miller is 9-2, knocking off people like Dwayne Ludwig, Mark Bocek, Gleison Tebow, Oliveira, Kamal Shalarus, Melvin Gillard, Joe Lauzon. All those, especially the last 4 or 5 there, are pretty impressive. Though the only 2 losses on since March of 2009 coming to Benson Henderson and Nate Diaz. Gray Maynard hasn't done too bad himself after defeating Jim Miller at UFC 96. He went on to win 3 more fights. To face where he fought and beat Roger Huerta and Nate Diaz and Kenny Florian, all those going to decision. The Diaz and Huerta fights, both split decisions, so a little controversy there. And after beating Kenny Florian in that title eliminator fight at UFC 118, he went on to fight Frankie Edgar at UFC 125 and UFC 136. Obviously, the first match being a draw, and then it spanned on about a year, with both of them getting hurt over the summer. Their first fight was New Year's of 2011 and October 8 of 2011. Obviously, at 136, Frankie Edgar came through a little more decisively and knocked him out via punches in the middle of the 4th round. What I think would happen, I love Miller. He's got a very exciting style and has looked a lot more threatening standing up, especially after that mauling of Lauzon. I mean, I said it once and I'll say it again. Those combinations he was dialing up really kind of were reminiscent of Penn at his best in the lightweight division when he was fighting guys like Shirk, Florian, Sanchez, and if he is able to keep up, he looks better and better in every single fight, where a lot of guys I feel like just sort of stay stagnant and have the same skill set their entire career. Miller and Maynard too are both guys who evolve very quickly. Maynard's been training at Nova União, and he looked really great in that fight against Guida. I mean, Guida's an exciting guy, and I like him and all. I lived in Chicago a few months. I'm looking for jobs in Chicago. It's a great city. But Guida, being the probably the best fighter out of the Chicago area. I actually saw him at a Joey Diaz thing too at the House of Blues, and got to talk with him for a moment. Really nice guy. I didn't push a podcast interview on him because I'm not douchey like that. If I meet a fighter, I'll just try and come off as a nice guy, not, hey, come on my podcast. But that's neither here nor there. Clay Guida was Maynard's last opponent, and Miller coming off that win against Lauzon. If they fought again, I really see it going either way. But, Maynard, I think, is just more the power guy, both wrestling and standing up at this point. But I think his advantage in both of those departments are very minimal. It isn't like Maynard's gonna be boxing up Miller like he's a scrub or slamming him down. They're both very skilled, and I think it's gonna come down to the guy who wants it more. Just based on skills, I would say Maynard is the better fighter. But looking at their records, Miller really took a huge. I would say a huge amount of momentum into his career for beating Lauzon. Lauzon really thought of as one of the best lightweight fighters in the UFC, and especially after an embarrassing loss against Diaz, he's looking to get a streak put back together, and I think the winner of this fight will be probably the number one title contender in the UFC, along with guys like Gilbert Melendez, who will be coming over. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. So I think Miller's going to want it more, but if we're going to go based on just skills alone, I have Maynard winning that by a decision. The next thing I wanted to go over really quick were a few news briefs. Bjorn Rebney and Eddie Alvarez are in a bitter contract spat. Apparently Alvarez is saying, well, it all goes to a match contract, which when Alvarez's contract ended, Bellator had an option. If he gets an offer from the UFC, Bellator has the legal right to match their offer, put in the same amount of money and benefits, and then Bellator would get the legal, they would be able to hire him back. And what Bellator is claiming is they put in a match contract. Eddie Alvarez is saying it was not close at all, and that's kind of where the stipulation lies. We haven't seen anything come out yet. Both Rebney and Alvarez kind of trying to play up to the media like they're the good guy. Rebney saying, oh, it's the exact same thing. Alvarez saying he made a metaphor talking about the UFC and Bellator contracts and comparing it to dinner at a fine restaurant and dinner at McDonald's. So we'll definitely see what comes out there in that bitter spat they're going through. John Jones versus Chael Sonnen, official for UFC 159, which will be in New Jersey. Really looking forward to that. Jones and Sonnen are two amazing fighters, two of the best wrestlers in the UFC, and especially if Sonnen can up his striking game and be able to stand with John Jones, anything can happen in that fight. I hope he doesn't throw any more of those ill-timed Westland wind-ups. I was rooting for him in both of those Silva fights, but I hate to wonder he won 5 of 7 of those rounds against Anderson Silva. What would happen in the second stanza if it wasn't for that spinning back fist, which wasn't so much bad form from Sonnen as it was Silva just being a guy who can slow time down and duck under anything. Silva's got the best reflexes in the UFC. He's the greatest fighter of all time. There's little video files where it shows him ducking and diving punches against guys like, not video files, the GIF files, dodging and diving strikes from Rich Franklin, Forrest Griffin. He's really on another level. So, Jones, never really has had that sort of ninja-like ability of Anderson Silva. He has more of a straight, I'm bigger than you, I'm going to throw crazy elbows and knees from stupid angles, not stupid, but, wild angles, and I'm an awesome wrestler. So let's see what you got. So that's official for UFC 159. Looking forward to that season of The Ultimate Fighter as well. Showtime looking for a replacement MMA organization to put in there as Strikeforce is left. So we'll see if they, Spike TV just signed Bellator. Bellator would be the next logical thing. We'll see if they bring in a Japanese organization. Maybe Showtime tries to start their own new amateur organization. Probably not the likely case. But maybe Bellator goes to Showtime after Spike. Maybe a promotion like ONE FC or an Asian or European promotion comes over to Showtime. Probably won't get as much attention as Strikeforce unless Showtime puts money into it. But they are looking to fill that MMA slot. Invicta, actually, Invicta 4 went down this past Saturday. Our fellow word on the street and Team Darkside fighter, Lightning Liz, unfortunately lost, but she put forth a great effort. Beck Hyatt losing the title fight. I don't have the names in front of me right now, but the kind of topic people were talking about the fight is that their Ustream card, people had paid $7.95 for this pay-per-view, and there were a lot of technical issues going down on Ustream. I don't know if people were refunded or not. I assume they were if they weren't able to see the show. But it was apparently the biggest pay-per-view buy rate Ustream ever had, and they just simply weren't ready for the amount of people that were going to be watching. And a lot of people were. It really proves that if you charge a reasonable $7.95, instead of a $60 for every card, it's something that people are going to be more interested in. But yeah, they go through a little technical issues with Ustream. We don't get nearly enough live listeners that the MMA Podcast would ever, have any Ustream problems like that. I think we need like 2 million instead of the 2 we usually dangle around. Yeah, it's crazy. We'll get a lot of Ustream and YouTube action, a lot of iTunes especially, and a few YouTube views as well. But no one seems to tune in. Definitely tune in live every Wednesday from 9 until 11 Eastern, 6 to 9 Pacific. We have a lot of fun, and we like taking calls. And you can talk about your personal life, cuss. You can say you just fucking. I don't know, I was about to get into some graphic stuff, a dark path. I don't want to take our viewers down. But, no, definitely call in 9 to 11 Eastern every Wednesday. And tune into the Roundtable, too. That goes 2 hours earlier on Thursday. That's 7 to 9 Eastern, 4 to 6 Pacific. We have a lot of fun on both of those shows. Our buddies over at MMA Mental, Word on the Street, Buffalo Dave, they're all some cool motherfuckers. As is Chris, who is still dead. Speaking about different cards, with Strikeforce leaving Showtime and being absolved in the UFC, including their fighters, Gilbert Melendez coming into the UFC saying he wants to avenge Nate Diaz's loss to Benson Henderson. It's looking like he might get that title shot. It really kind of helps his cause, smack talk wise, that Benson just beat his teammate. Melendez has put together a lot of wins over in Strikeforce. Chris thinks he's overrated. I think he really deserves all the accolades. Josh Thompson's a great fighter. Josh Thompson's gonna really surprise some people in the UFC when he comes over and starts having real close fights with top guys. But Gilbert Melendez saying he wants to avenge Nate Diaz's loss, and we might just see Benson's next fight be against Melendez. And finally, I don't know if it's sad, but it's definitely concerning, Joe Lauzon saying he's reassessing his career due to potential brain damage, talking about his fight of the night bonus that's not worth not being able to function properly down the road. And he's apparently looking at things and thinking about what he wants to do. Do I think he's going to retire? No, but it's kind of a sobering thing when you have a lot of these guys who are reassessing their entire careers because they see guys like Muhammad Ali who live long, but their later years are kind of troubled with these injuries and brain disorders that are linked with a lot of concussive damage from fighting. So that's definitely something that's sort of pushing its way to the forefront of every contact sport, whether it's football, hockey, MMA. Here, this concussive damage that people take really is something to look at down the road, especially as more and more fighters start getting older, and you can see the effects. Some of them live awesome, healthy lives, but let's be frank. Some of these current UFC fighters are gonna have problems down the road. Whether it's 200, that's to be seen. But the head trauma you get in training too, and in the fights themselves can often have very serious implications down the road. So that's something, along with the medical issues like TRT, that we definitely have our eyes on moving forward and seeing, and will really play critical roles in how the sport evolves and progresses. So yeah, that's it for the news briefs. Got a couple more news topics I just wanted to go over that I'll go over real quick, as there's nobody else here on the podcast. It's just me doing it big. Also follow us, the MMA Podcast, on Twitter, and yeah, we always put up our links when we're live. Like tweeting with people who listen. Tweet us a question if you're just fucking listening and you're like, I wonder what Jake and Chris think about this, and we'll talk about it on the next show if it's something we haven't planned on breaching yet, or if you just want to BS and be like, yo, who's better, Kane or Overeem? We'll chat up whatever. So themamapodcast.com, we like to keep it active with our fans. All three of you. We've actually gotten a lot more YouTube comments and emails and tweets than I ever expected, and we really, really do appreciate all the positive feedback. You guys keep the boat sailing. Eves Edwards, homie of our buddy Ramsey's over at Word on the Street, matched up against Isaac Valley Flag, coming over from Strikeforce. Let me adjust my mic here. I know that sounds awesome when I adjust it. Eves Edwards, the Thug Jitsu Master, our buddy Ramsey's from Word on the Street podcast, is an honorary Thug Jitsu black belt, and he's being matched up against Isaac Valley Flag, coming over from Strikeforce. I think Flag, I don't know, I think he deserves a good opponent, but Eve Edwards just made waves in his fight he just had recently, being one of the first guys to knock out Jeremy Stevens. I'm not sure if that was the first time he was knocked out or the first time he was knocked out that early, but either way, Edwards really turned a lot of heads there, and I think he does earn a shot against the top 20 lightweight even in his division. Isaac Valley Flag, obviously not really the biggest name, but he could be understatedly good. He has been making a lot of waves in Strikeforce, but now that the fight's been made up, I see Eve Edwards winning this fight in the first or second round by a finish. His striking looked excellent against Jeremy Stevens, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more of the same when he fights Valley Flag. In our last bit of news, there's a report coming out that 10 females signed to the UFC, and what fights stand out to you at women's bantamweight. With a lot of people coming over, we can start, yes, Rousey's fighting Liz Carmouche next, the fight no one was really clamoring for. But if they are truly bringing that many people over, then let's make some fights with some top women to see who really can challenge Ronda Rousey. Let's put Miesha Tate up against Sarah McMahon. Let's bring Cyborg in. It's a kind of exciting having these divisions with limited rosters, the flyweight division and the women's bantamweight division. Now everyone's in the top 10. Everyone in the division is 2 or 3 wins away from a title shot, and it's going to be very exciting seeing that progress, seeing who the UFC is able to bring in. Obviously, the fighters I mentioned are probably all top 10 women's bantamweights in the world. I'm really interested in seeing what happens there. And I also watched that Invicta 4 fight. And if you guys aren't watching Invicta, you are missing out. Those women can fight. It is not like women's basketball, where it's a completely different sport. Women's basketball and men's basketball is not a similar sport. You have guys in men's basketball who are trying to slash through the lanes to smash it down and dunk. I mean, there are teams who have over 50 alley-oops in the NBA, let alone dunks. Dunking and the athleticism inside is a much, much stronger weapon in the men's ranks, where in the women's ranks there are like 2 women who can dunk, and when they do dunk, it's a big deal. They're completely different sports, and that's why I don't like to watch women's basketball. Women's MMA and men's MMA, that's pretty much the same exact thing. Seeing a couple women's 135-pound fighters fighting can be just as entertaining as a couple of dudes. If you don't believe me, go turn on Rousey versus Tate. That was a back-and-forth war. Tate, really gave Ronda a handful to deal with before tapping Tate out late in the first round. She was the first person to go more than a minute with her, and she went, I think, almost 5. These women are incredibly entertaining. Seeing Cyborg maybe I really don't think I want to see Cyborg fight anyone before Rousey. If she does come into the UFC. Obviously, the first fight they should make for Rousey after Carmouche is Chris Cyborg. But like I said before, Miesha Tate versus Sarah McMahon, boom, that's who you feed to Ronda next. I don't see any of these women beating Ronda Rousey, though. Maybe if Miesha Tate can up her ground game, which she definitely was. She's involved with Brian Caraway, who's involved with that alpha male team. She trains a bunch in the Northwest. She's someone, like I was talking about Miller and Maynard earlier, guys who are always evolving. Rousey, it's kind of hard to get a gauge on if she's evolving or not, because she's just winning every fight within a minute. But Miesha Tate, obviously, the fight against Kedzie at that Strikeforce matchup, I think it was the most recent Strikeforce, Rousey versus Kaufman, she looked incredible. And if she really is able to evolve, she could give Ronda a handful, even more than she did in their first fight. So I guess that's all the news we'll go over. Then we'll break down the Strikeforce card, and then I will play myself out at this point. The 5 fights, I guess we'll go from the bottom to the top. The first fight's a catchweight, 194-pound fight between Ed Herman and Jacare Ronaldo Souza. Both of these guys are decent, are not just decent. They're better than decent fighters. Herman, the American, Souza, the Brazilian. Obviously, Souza, one of the most hailed grapplers turned mixed martial artists in the entire world. He has some of the best jits in mixed martial arts. Put a really incredible resume up being in Strikeforce. He's 6-1, beating guys like Linland, Kennedy, Lawler, our friend Bristol Murundi, who was on just a couple months ago, and Derek Brunson. And his last 3 wins have all been by finish. He submitted both Murundi and Lawler out, and both of them were chokes. The Lawler one rear naked choke, and the Murundi arm triangle in the 3rd round. And he put forth some excellent striking against Derek Brunson at that recent Rousey vs. Kaufman Strikeforce event. Ed Herman was over in the UFC, one of these rare guys who moved from the UFC to Strikeforce after the acquisition of Strikeforce from the UFC. He did lose to Jake Shields, but the original decision was turned over and ruled a no contest after Shields failed that post-fight drug test. Herman's come out saying he's mad about that, saying, I lost to a guy on steroids. Before that, he had a three-fight win streak against Tim Crater, Kyle Noak, and Clifford Starks, Jesus Christ. Also is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, training out with Team Quest in Colorado. Moving down to middleweight, I think he moved down. oh shit, I don't have it in front of me. I'm not sure when, but he has been a middleweight for a while. Thinking about it though, especially after Souza beat down Brunson there in the first round of that fight he had against him. Just he has excellent striking, excellent ground game, and Herman's good in both categories, but I think Souza's just going to overwhelm him. And I don't think he's going to be able to finish the fight, as Herman has pretty impressive jiu-jitsu as well, but I think we see Ronaldo Souza cruise to a decision there. Mike Kyle versus Gegard Mousasi. Both of these, this really is an incredible Strikeforce fight. Every single one of these, cards going down to, I want to say, the 10th are intriguing matchups, and it's obviously their last card, so it's a bit of MMA, history going down, as they really have had a lot of notable events with mixed martial arts, talking about guys like Gilbert Melendez, Nick Diaz, Fedor being in Strikeforce for a while, Henderson rebuilding his legacy in Strikeforce, and a lot of people think of Henderson as one of the greatest of all time. It obviously started off with that Shamrock Gracie event. It has been quite a ride for Strikeforce, and kind of sorry to see it go, but I'm more excited to see it sort of absolved into the UFC. So, who was I talking about again? I was talking about Mike Kyle versus Gegard Mousasi. That's it. Both of these guys are on, are excellent fighters. Mousasi, he lost to Muhammad Lawal back at that Strikeforce Nashville in 2010. Since then, he's 4-0-1, but he hasn't really beat anyone up to Mike Kyle's, sort of level. Kyle actually, look at the last couple guys he's lost to are two guys who are heavyweights. Verdum and Silva. Obviously, it's going to be a light heavyweight match. Kyle's one of the more underrated guys. It seems like more people are picking Gegard Mousasi, saying he's got the advantage to take Kyle down and kind of have his way with him. I don't really agree there, and I think Kyle, especially fighting now at light heavyweight, not moving up there just to get losses. I think we're going to see a lot of good things out of him in the 205-pound division in the UFC, and I think Kyle's going to take this one by a decision. So where are we now? And I do apologize if I sort of am stumbling over myself. I wasn't expecting to take the reins and do this solo. Definitely, if you want to call in and relieve a little bit of the awkwardness, that number one more time is what is the number? Jesus Christ. Our number is 213-457-3380, or Skype us at the MMA Podcast. We love having calls. Let me get to the top 3 fights in that Strikeforce card. 2 of those being the heavyweight bouts, and then obviously the billing fight, the welterweight title. We got Josh Barnett versus Nandor Guelmino. I believe that's how you spell it. Barnett, man, this Nandor guy is not bad. Obviously, he's good enough to be in the 3rd highest fight on this card. Man, I had a little write-up I was looking at earlier, and I don't know where the fuck it went, but there it is. Barnett, you got to give him a little bit of credit for hanging in there for 5 rounds against Daniel Cormier. It obviously turned up he was injured early in that fight, so Cormier definitely deserves high accolades for tossing around Barnett like a ragdoll, but you can't really take too much away from Barnett because he was pretty fucking injured during that fight. He's a fighting guy who isn't nearly as well known as Josh Barnett, but he's carrying a 7-fight win streak into the fight. He was just over in the World Free Fight Challenge, and it's kind of funny. The guys' nicknames are Nandor the Hun versus the War Master Barnett. So it's 2 kind of cheesy fucking names, but Josh has shown he has good stand-up, and he is a task from top position. If Nandor can't prevent the Barnett takedown, this is going to be Josh Barnett all day. He is a veteran and still a pretty young guy. We've actually talked about it on the podcast before. But for a guy who has that many fights under his belt, I believe his record's like 31-6, and with a few draws, he's only 35, and he has had some incredibly historic fights. He had the 2 fights against Crow Cop. He fought at UFC 28. Come on, he fought at UFC 28. Fought in about 10 Pride fights. He fought Crow Cop 3 times and unfortunately lost all 3. Fought Big Nog twice, beat him once. Fought a ton of very, very great fighters. Recently beat Geronimo Dos Santos, Brett Rogers, and Sergey Karatanov. All those 3 guys being tough guys in the heavyweight division, and Josh Barnett finishing all those fights within, I think, 6 or 7 minutes. All those fights were finished. The loss to Cormier was embarrassing, but I don't think he's going to have an embarrassing fight against Nandor. I don't think Nandor is going to be able to hold off the takedowns, and I think Barnett's going to ground and pound his way to either a submission or a TKO against the heavily overmatched Nandor. Daniel Cormier and Dion Staring, we talked about this briefly. We won't get too deep into it, or I won't get too deep into it. Cormier is just a monster. He has excellent wrestling and crazy stand-up. Dion Staring, you heard Ryan Jimmo talking about training with him, telling people not to sleep on Dion Staring. I do think Cormier, his 20-1 odds might be a little on the biased for Cormier's side, but either way, whether it's 10-1, 12-1, 15-1, 20-1, Cormier is a heavy favorite, and he's going to be able to finish this fight however he wants to, whether he wants to put Dion's butt on the ground and ground him out, or whether he wants to keep it standing and box with his opponent, which is probably not going to be the route Cormier goes. Cormier is going to want to take Dion Staring down. Staring has trained with Overeem for a while with Golden Glory and the Black Zillions, and he's not a guy I necessarily want to be fighting with much. If he can take a pop regularly from Alistair Overeem, Cormier might be a good boxer, but Staring, training with a much more well-rounded striker and the kickboxer that Alistair Overeem is, Cormier might just want to ride this one out in top position. And that brings us to the welterweight championship. Nate Marquardt fighting Tarek Saffiedine. Saffiedine is a guy whose name you hear about every good now and then. Fought in Dream for a while. He's been in Strikeforce for a good while now, actually going 6-1 in his last 7 fights. His only loss coming to Tyron Woodley. This card has got a lot of one-sided matches on it. I don't think any of those victories in his recent streak have anything on Marquardt. Former King of Pancrase. He was a title contender in the UFC, fought Anderson Silva. Marquardt has fought a lot of guys better than Tarek Saffiedine. Just to name a few: Damian Maia, Chael Sonnen, Martin Kampmann, Anderson Silva, Yushin Okami. I don't think Tarek Saffiedine has fought many guys better than Marquardt, and I think Marquardt is going to be one of the more dangerous fighters to come over from Strikeforce. He says hell yeah on fighting GSP, and I think that'd be a very interesting fight. Marquardt's only knock recently, he wasn't really able to keep up with people who were better wrestlers than he was, like a Chael Sonnen, like Yushin Okami. But I don't think Tarek Saffiedine offers a kind of wrestling threat like those two guys. I don't think he offers more of a stand-up threat than Marquardt does. I don't think this one goes long. I'm actually going to say first or second round knockout by by Marquardt. He looked incredible against that title fight versus Tyron Woodley, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing Nathan Marquardt come over to the UFC. Nathan Marquardt, whatever you want to call him. I want to see him come over to the UFC and get some work done. He's an incredible fighter, and I think he, like Gilbert Melendez, whether you give him an immediate title shot or give him a title eliminator shot, I think he's done enough in Strikeforce to make his resume ask for a UFC title once he's brought over to the UFC. And I guess that does it. Big shout out to Ryan Jimmo for calling in, chatting with us a few days ago. I'm glad we were finally able to play that for you guys. I'll put it on YouTube later this evening. Thanks to the listeners, as always. You guys are cool motherfuckers and some positive people, and we really appreciate the encouragement you've given us to keep going. This is our 27th episode, and we look forward to the next 27. The roundtable tomorrow, 7 to 9 Eastern, 4 to 6 Pacific tomorrow and every Thursday. Tune into that. We like doing that, coming together with myself, Chris, Ray, and Patrick from MMA Mental, Ramses from the Word on the Street podcast, and our buddy Buffalo Dave, who should just get a podcast so we can start plugging the shit out of that. Twitter at the MMA Podcast, and we do this one every Wednesday, 9 to 11 Eastern, 6 to 8 Pacific. Next week, we're having on Chad George, UFC, or he's a lightweight fighter, and was just featured on the film Occupation Fighter, which also has Josh Barnett and Clay Guida. Give it a look. I mean, I watched it a couple days ago on Netflix. It's an amazing film. Occupation. It's to type it out, it's occupation, and then a colon, and then fighter. I was about to say type in occupation colon fighter, and you guys would think that was a joke, me saying colon, because that means butt, and we're all about butt jokes on this podcast. But no, it's Occupation Fighter. It's an amazing, it's an amazing documentary, and I'm really looking forward to chat with Chad next Wednesday. We got that set up, so if you want to watch that before we have him on, and then throw us any questions for him, tweet us at the MMA Podcast, and we'll. As long as it isn't anything like how big is your butt, or do you like eating poop out of a butt, I'm pretty sure that we'll do it, even though that's just sort of that's upper alley, no pun intended. As far as the stupid, inane shit, the sophomoric bullshit we like to talk about, but we like keeping it fun with you people. But it's weird when I'm talking by myself and I just sort of bring myself down into it. Usually it takes another person to, kind of escalate things. But you know what? I've been fucking ranting on forever now. Definitely tune in next week, Chad George. That's going to be a fun interview. If you think we should ask him anything, if you have any questions, tweet us and we will ask for you next Wednesday. So yeah, I believe that's all we got. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next Wednesday with Chad George. And until then, listen to us on the Roundtable. That's tomorrow. Till tomorrow on the Roundtable. I guess I'd say we gone, but it's just me. So we gone.
Old family first, fam. Taught the world to swing that double-edged sword. It works, fam. BJJ from GJJ, like Cool Herc gave birth to what your DJ plays. But despite the lineage, I will never be closed-minded. Refuse to see beyond the lines, you go blind. Rocker travels the 10th planet, I flow free. I'm welcome on mini-mats, gi to no gi. Though my branch traces roots to the original tree. Roots sprouted from the original seed. Water with blood, sweat, and tears, spotlight with sunlight. That tree became a forest by like Tudo done right. Then Hoist dominated them all in one night. And hate song hasn't been beaten in one fight. Flow with the gold, kill a hit on and holler no. That to continue to win, we must continue to grow. Let's go. We did it, mama. We did it. We did it for the love of the game. We did it, mama. I did it for. Yes, sir. Mama, we did it. The game will never be the same. We did it, mama. I did it for. Born with pride and abundance. Look up to the sky, hide a little smile and amusement. Never grown accustomed to losing. Live and die for the love of this music. Compel and thrive when the times are the toughest and truest.
silencing all these idiots caught up in all their ignorance. Two clans fighting under the same banner. We all got love for this ground game, and that's all that matters. In the balance of the teachings of the grandmaster, I'm trying to master the system, that's what I'm after. And stay true to the craft, to spark trees to relax. Old school miracle, lacing the track. And I'm working the angles, always sharp and precise, man. Back in the day when I was learning to rock in this mic, paying homage to the classic shit. Dial